We continue now at the top of Daf Tesvav Amud Aleph and Meseches Bava Basra. This is Bava Basra Daf 15a. On the previous summit, the Gemara brought a brisa which was identifying the authors of various Sfarim in Tanakh. And the brisa had said that when it comes to Sefer Tehillim, David wrote Sefer Tehillim, but also included writings from 10 Zekanim, 10 elders. And the brisa now says the last three of the 10 elders, Val Yedei Shlosha B'nei Korach, it was also through the three sons of Korach. And the brisa continues, Yirmiyah Kasav Sifro v'Sefer Malachim, v'Kinos, Yirmiyah wrote his Sefer, and he wrote Sefer Malachim, and he also wrote Kinos, which is Eicha. Chizkiah v'Siyaso, Chizkiah and his colleagues, Kasva Yeshaya, Mishlei Shir Ashirim, and Koheles, they wrote Yeshaya, Mishlei Shir Ashirim, and Koheles. Anshe Knesset HaGedolah, Kasva Yecheskel, Ushnei Masar, Daniel and Megillas Esther. The Anshe Knesset HaGedolah, they wrote Yecheskel and the Trei Asar, Sefer Daniel and Megillas Esther. Ezra Kasav Sifro, Ezra wrote his Sefer, V'Yachas Shel Divrei Hayam Madlo, and he also wrote the genealogy of Divrei Hayam until his generation. And the Gemara says, Messiah le Rav, this supports what Rav said. The Yamar Rav Yehuda Marav, because Rav Yehuda said that Rav said, Lo Allah Ezra mi Bavel, Ezra did not ascend from Bavel at sheyiches atzmo v'ola until he first recorded his genealogy, and then he went up. And the Gemara says, Uman asking, now who finished the genealogy of Sefer Divrei Hayamim? Nechemya ben Chakalia. It was finished by Nechemya ben Chakalia. And Rashi explains, Anshe Knesset HaGedolah, who are the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah? Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi, Zerubbabel, and Mordechai v'Chavreim. It's Chagai, Zechariah, and Malachi, and Zerubbabel, and Mordechai, and their colleagues. Kasvu Yecheskel, it says that the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah, it says they wrote Sefer Yecheskel and the Trei Asar, and Sefer Daniel and Megillas Esther. Shenisnabe Begola. Now Rashi says the Nevuas of Yecheskel were in the exile. Ve'eni Odeya Lama Lo Kasvu Yecheskel Bi'atzmo, says Rashi, I don't know why Yecheskel himself didn't write Sefer Yecheskel. Imlom Ivnei Shelo Nitna Nevuah Likaseh B'chutz La'aretz, unless you say the reason is because Nevuah, prophecy, was not supposed to be written down outside of Eretz Yisrael. V'chasvam Elu La'achar Shabo La'aretz, and so therefore these individuals wrote it after they came to Eretz Yisrael. V'chein Sefer Daniel Shaya Begola, the same we can say for Sefer Daniel, that also was in the exile. V'chein Megillas Esther, the same we can say for Megillas Esther. Ushnei Masar and the Trei Asar, Mitoch Shayu Nevuoseim Ketanos, when it comes to the Trei Asar, because it was such small amounts of prophecies, Lo Kasvam Hanavim Atzmam Ish Sifro, the actual prophets themselves didn't write, each individual didn't write his own Sefer. Uboy Chagai Zechariah Malachi, and instead Chagai Zechariah and Malachi came along. V'rosh Ruach HaKodesh Mistalekes Shayuhem Neviim Achronim, they saw that Ruach HaKodesh was going to be no longer, they were the last of the prophets. V'yamdu v'chasvu nevuoseim, so therefore they wrote their nevuos. V'tzarfu nevuos ketanos imam, and they joined together other smaller nevuos, smaller prophecies together with them. V'asom sefer gadol shelo yovdu machmas kitnam, and therefore they made them into a larger sefer that it shouldn't get lost. If there was a bunch of smaller svarim, it would get lost, and that's why they wrote the Trei Asar. And the Gemara continues, Amar Mar, the master said, Yoshua kasav sifro shmona psukim shevatorah. Yoshua wrote his sefer, meaning Sefer Yoshua, and he also wrote the last 8 psukim in the Torah. Tanya command Amar shmona psukim shevatorah Yoshua kasva, and our brisa follows the one who says that those last 8 psukim in the Torah were written by Yehoshua. The Tanya, as we learned in a brisa, Vayamas sham Moshe Eved Hashem, it says in the Torah that at Moshe the Eved Hashem died. Efsher Moshe Meis, some have the gears of Efsher Moshe Chai. Is it possible that Moshe was alive? V'chasav Vayamas sham Moshe, and while he's alive he's writing that Moshe died. Ela adkan kasav Moshe mikan va'elach kasav Yehoshua. Rather, what you have to say is that until this point Moshe was writing it, but from this point onward Yehoshua was writing it. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, that's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. V'amri lo Reb Nechemya, some say that's the opinion of Reb Nechemya. Amar lo Rabbi Shimon said to him, Efsher Sefer Torah chaser os achas, is it possible the Sefer Torah would be missing a letter? Uchsiv lakoach es Sefer HaTorah hazeh, yet it says, take this Sefer Torah. Rather, you have to say it was all written by Moshe Rabbeinu. Ela adkan HaKadosh Baruch Hu Omer Moshe Omer v'chosev. It has to be that until this point HaKadosh Baruch Hu dictated it, and then Moshe repeated it, said it over, and wrote it down. Mikan va'elach, but from this point onward, from the point where it says that Moshe died, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Omer, HaKadosh Baruch Hu dictated it. Moshe kosev b'dem, and Moshe wrote it with tears. K'moshe nemer lahalan, as it says further on, Vayomer lehem Baruch mipiv yikra Eli. It says that Baruch said to them that he dictated it to me, as kol advarim ha'ela, all of these words, vani kosev ala sefer b'dio, and I wrote it on the sefer with ink. Keman oz lahad amar Rabbi Yoshua bar Abba amar Rav Gidol amar Rav. Now, who does the following statement? This is a statement from Rabbi Yoshua bar Abba from Rav Gidul Amarav, who does it follow? The statement is, Shmona Psukim Shebatorah, those last 8 Psukim in the Torah, Yachid Korei Osan. It says that an individual, it has to be read all by one individual, meaning it can't be split up. Now the point over here is it sounds like there's something unique about these 8 Psukim. And so therefore, Lema Rabbi Yehuda, Udalok Rabbi Shimon, let it say it's like Rabbi Yehuda, and not like Rabbi Shimon, meaning Rabbi Shimon says it's written by Moshe Rabbeinu, it should be identical. Whatever rules apply to the rest of the Torah apply to this. And the Gemara says, Afilu Tamer Rabbi Shimon. No, you could even say it's Rabbi Shimon. Hoel Vishtanu, because even Rabbi Shimon agrees there is a difference between these last 8 Psukim. They were written with Moshe Rabbeinu's tears, so to speak, and therefore since there's a difference, so there's a difference in halacha as well. And Rashi explains, Yachid Koreosan, again, these last 8 Psukim are written by an individual or all together. Kilomar ein mafsikin, and it means you don't make an interruption in these last 8. Lema Rabbi Yehuda, he let us say it's Rabbi Yehuda, Damar lo kasva Moshe, because he says that these last 8 were not written by Moshe, Lafikach nishtanu mishar HaTorah, that's why they're different from the rest of the Torah. Delok Rabbi Shimon, let us say this is not like Rabbi Shimon. And the Gemara said it could even be Rabbi Shimon, Hoel vishtanu lichto bedema ishtanu, since they're different in the sense they were written with tears, so therefore they have different halachas. And the Gemara continues at the 2 dots, Yehoshua Kasav Sifra, we said above that Yehoshua wrote his Sefer Yehoshua. But isn't it written in Sefer Yehoshua, Vayomos Yehoshua binun Eved Hashem? It says that Yehoshua died. How could he write that part? And the Gemara says, the Aske Elazar will say that Elazar, he finished off the Sefer. But isn't it also written, Elazar ben Aaron Mes? It says Elazar died. How could he finish that? The Aske Pinchas, that part was finished by Pinchas. And the Gemara continues, Shmuel Kasav Sifra, we said above that Shmuel wrote his Sefer, Vaksivu Shmuel Mes. Doesn't it say there? It's written, Shmuel died. And the Gemara says the Aske God HaChoza v'Nasan HaNavi was finished. That part was written by God HaChoza, God the seer, and Nasan the Navi, Nasan the prophet. David Kasav Sefer Tehillim al Yedei Asar Zakenim. We said above that David wrote Sefer Tehillim, and he compiled some of the writings came from 10 elders. So the Gemara says V'lichshav Nami Eson HaEzrachi. Why not also count Eson HaEzrachi, some Tehillim from there? Amar Rav says Eson HaEzrachi Zehu Avram. Eson HaEzrachi actually is Avram. Ksivach, it's written over here Eson HaEzrachi. It says again Eson HaEzrachi. And it says over there Miheir mi Mizrach Tzedek. It says Miheir mi Mizrach Tzedek, which is a reference to Avram. So therefore you see it's Avram. And then the Gemara says Kachashav Moshe v'Kachashav Haman. We're saying Moshe is one of the elders and Haman as well. V'amar Rav, but didn't Rav say Haman zeh Moshe, that Haman is Moshe? It's the same person. Ksiv Hacha, because it says over here, it's written here Haman. It says the word Haman. Ksiv Hasam, and it's written over there B'chol Beisi Ne'eman Hu. It says about Moshe Rabbeinu that he's trusted, he's Ne'eman in all of my house, and that's how we understand that he is Haman. And the Gemara says Trey Haman Hava. There actually were 2 Hamans. There's Moshe, who's called Haman, and there's an additional Haman as well. Moshe Kasav Sifro Parshas Bilam V'Iyov. It said that Moshe wrote his Sefer, he wrote the Sefer Torah, and he also wrote Parshas Bilam, even though those were the Nevuas of Bilam, he wrote those as well, included, and he also wrote Sefer Iyov. And the Gemara says, Messiah Leila Reb Levi Bar Lachma, this is a support for Reb Levi Bar Lachma, Diyam Reb Levi Bar Lachma, because Reb Levi Bar Lachma says, Iyov b'mei Moshe Haya, Iyov lived during the days of Moshe. Ksiv Hacha, it's written over here, meaning in Sefer Iyov, it says, Miyitein Eifo v'yichtuv in Milai, it uses the word Eifo, Ksiv Hasam, and it's written over there, Uvamei Yivada Eifo, that's by Moshe, and so you see that Iyov lived during the times of Moshe. But the Gemara says, according to that, V'yema b'mei Yitzchak, according to that logic, you might as well say that he lived during the days of Yitzchak. Tichsiv, it's written, Mi Eifo hu hatzad sayid, it uses the word Eifo by Yitzchak. V'yema b'mei Yaakov, and again, by the same logic, you could say he lived during the times of Yaakov. Tichsiv, as it's written, Im Kain Eifo zos asu, it uses the word Eifo there. V'yema b'mei Yosef, and again, by the same logic, you can say he lived during the times of Yosef. Tichsiv, as it's written, Eifo heimrom, it says Eifo by Yosef as well. And the Gemara says, Lo sal kadaitach, don't let it enter your mind that any of these should be true. Tichsib, because it's written, Miyiten b'sefer v'yuchku, Moshe hu de'ikri mechokek. It also says in Sefer Iyov, it uses the word v'yuchku, and Moshe is called the mechokek. Tichsib, as it's written, Vayar reishes lo kisham chelkas mechokek safon. It says that's where the chelak of the mechokek, that's where it's hidden, and that's a reference to Moshe Rabbeinu. And the Gemara continues, Rava Amar, Rava says, Iyov b'mei meraglim haya, Iyov lived during the days of the meraglim, the spies. Ksiv Hach, it's written over here, Ish haya be'eretz utz Iyov shemo. It says the word utz in reference to Iyov. Uksiv Hasam, and it's written over there, Hayesh ba'etz. By the meraglim, it says Hayesh ba'etz, it says the word eitz. And so therefore we understand that Iyov lived during the time of the meraglim. The Gemara says, Midami, can you really compare the 2 psukim? Hacha utz, hasam eitz. Over here it says the word utz, there it says the word eitz. It's not the same word. The Gemara says, Hachi kamer lu Moshe Yisrael. No, this is what Moshe was saying to Klal Yisrael when he said, Hayesh bo eitz, is there eitz, talking to the Meraglim about Eretz Yisrael. He meant to say as follows, Yeshno la'oso adam, is that person still alive? Is Eov still alive? Sheshnosav aruchos ke'etz, because Eov's years are long like a tree. He lived a long life. Umegan al doro ke'etz, and also he protects his generation like a tree. So that was the reference to Eov. And the Gemara continues, Yosef ahumer Rabbanan kamed Rav Shmuel bar Nachmeni v'Yosef v'Ko'amar. One of the Rabbanan was sitting in front of Rav Shmuel bar Nachmeni, and he was sitting and he was saying as follows, Eov lo haya v'lo nivra. Eov never was, he was never created, he's not a real person. Ela mashal haya, the whole thing was just a mashal, it was all just a parable. Amar lei, so he said back to him, Alech amar kra, to you the pasuk says, Ish haya be'eretz Utz Eov shemo. It says there was a man in the land of Utz, and his name was Eov. It certainly sounds like a real person. But the Gemara continues, Ela me'ata, but according to that logic, Ulerosh ein kol kim kivsa achas ketana, asher kana v'yichya v'gomer. This was a mashal that was said from Nasan Hanavi to David HaMelech. The poor man, all he had was a small kevis, he just had a small lamb. Mihave la mashal bi'alma, that was just a mashal, it's not a real story. Hachanami mashal bi'alma, so too over here you can say that the story of Eov is just a mashal. But the Gemara still says, Imkain, if so, Shmo v'shem iro lama, what does it need to say his name and the name of his city? By saying all of that, it sounds like it's more than a mashal. Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Lazar Damri Tarvayu, Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Lazar, they both say, Eov me ole gola haya. Eov was one of the people who ascended from the exile. Ubeis midrash ub'Tiveria, and his Beis Medrash was in Tiveria, which would essentially mean he lived during the times of the second Beis HaMikdash. Ubeis midrash ub'Tiveria haya, again his Beis Medrash, it was in Tiveria. But the Gemara says to that, Meisvei, we have a question on that. The Brisa says, Yemei shenosav shel Eov, the amount of years that Eov lived was mishash and nichnasu Yisrael l'Mitzrayim. It was from the time that Klal Yisrael entered Egypt, v'yad sheyatzu, and until they left. It certainly does not seem that he lived during the times of the second Beis HaMikdash, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Tesvav Amud Beis.